Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a really fascinating fan script that asks a pretty devastating question. What if Captain America's happy ending in Avengers Endgame wasn't an ending at all? What if it was actually the trigger for a universal apocalypse? What if getting everything he ever wanted cost everyone else, well, everything?
Okay, so the story kicks off not with some big explosion, but with this quiet, totally ominous promise. This one line just completely reframes Steve Rogers' retirement. Suddenly, his story isn't over. It was just on pause, kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop.
So we open in Brooklyn, 1952. On the surface, it looks perfect. Steve Rogers is living the life he always dreamed of with Peggy Carter. But, and you can probably see where this is going, there's a really deep, unsettling darkness just under the surface of this picture-perfect life.
Yeah, he is haunted by the future he comes from. The script paints this amazing picture of him as a ghost at his own feast, you know? He's watching the love of his life, but he's feeling this immense weight of everything he knows is coming. He's there physically, but his mind, it's trapped in a future he can never, ever share with her.
And of course, Peggy, being the brilliant agent she is, she senses his turmoil. She knows he's carrying a burden that's way heavier than just memories of the war. His entire perfect life is built on a paradox, and that foundation is really starting to crack.
And speaking of those cracks, they're not just showing anymore. That whole paradox is about to completely shatter. The timeline itself is literally starting to fracture under the strain of what Steve did. And then, bam! Everything just stops. The sky shakes, clocks literally freeze in place, a rift in reality just tears open, and this chilling voice announces that the natural order has been violated. This is it. This is the moment the bill comes due for Steve's happiness.
And out of that rift comes our villain. But here's the thing. It's not a person. It's a cosmic force of nature. This Doomsday entity is described as this ancient being that's drawn to Steve's little timeline anomaly like a shark to blood in the water.
The entity just lays it all out there. It reveals the horrifying truth, the one thing Steve must have been terrified of this whole time, his personal happiness. That one selfish choice he made to stay with Peggy, that's the very thing poisoning all of reality.
And just to really hammer the point home, the entity bombards Steve with these horrific visions of the chaos his choice has created. He sees his friends, the Avengers, dying. He sees entire worlds just collapsing into dust. And he sees these twisted, broken versions of himself at war with each other. The horror of it sinks in. It's not just one timeline at risk, you guys. It's all of them.
So while all this is going down back in the 50s, the story jumps us to the present day, where the current Avengers are starting to feel the tremors. Reality is glitching. They know something is fundamentally wrong, but they can't possibly imagine where it's coming from.
Of course, it's Dr. Strange, right? The guardian of reality. He's the first one to realize the impossible truth. A second, hidden Captain America has been living in the past all along, like a ghost in the timeline that's now threatening to bring the whole house down.
And it's this question from Sam Wilson that really anchors the whole discovery for us. It connects the legend they thought had retired peacefully to this massive, existential crisis they're now facing. The past isn't just haunting them, it's actively trying to erase their future.
The script reveals that Steve's choice didn't just create one little problem. No, it spawned countless splintered timelines, and each one has its own warped version of Captain America. So now the Avengers have to face the horror of fighting evil, broken versions of their greatest hero.
So you can see where this is all heading. It all comes down to one final, absolutely impossible choice. To fix reality, Steve has to confront and undo the one selfish decision he ever allowed himself to make. And then we get this incredible scene. It's set in this void outside of time, and Steve meets his older self, the one we saw at the end of Endgame. And this older, wiser Steve confirms the tragic, awful truth. The life he chose for himself has to be unmade. So the solution isn't just about winning a fight against some big monster. Steve has to perform a kind of temporal surgery. He has to go back and completely erase the timeline he created, removing his entire life with Peggy from existence as if it were a cancer. And the consequence of this, oh man, it's just absolutely heartbreaking. As he erases their life together, Peggy fades from existence. And her final words, they're not an accusation. They're this tragic acknowledgement of who he truly is. He was always meant to be a hero first. So what's left after a sacrifice that huge?
The multiverse is stable, sure, but the personal cost for Steve Rogers is absolute.
Yep, the universe is safe. But Steve's happiness, the whole reason he broke time in the first place, it now never existed. He saved the world by completely destroying his own, and now he's a man without a past or a future.
He returns to the present day young again, having sacrificed his dream. And it's Sam who finds him and reminds him that even though his personal life is gone forever, his duty remains. The shield is once again his burden to carry.
But the story ends with one final, provocative thought. There's a post-credit scene that hints that erasing one broken timeline, well, it wasn't a clean fix. And it leaves us with this chilling question. What other horrors did his choice unleash? And is this Doomsday really over?